it is one after one, so consideration of everybody's time, we'll go ahead and we'll get started today. So appreciate everybody joining us for our FDI table talk today. These sessions, we want to be a little bit different. We want to make sure that people are collaborating and we're talking, and we want to try to facilitate a little bit more conversation. So I do have just a little bit of presentation just to guide us, but please feel free, use the chat, speak up, and we're going to talk. And today we're going to talk about using AI, excuse me, as a learning tool for faculty. And so I think Sarah from ID was with us a couple weeks ago and kind of talked about some of these topics, and we're going to show how to use it actual in practice. And so I have a colleague with me today, Dr. Nicholas Zoroya from Wayne State University up in beautiful Detroit, Michigan. And he has been just such a great resource for me as far as being able to use AI in a lot of my kind of workflows. So I'm going to share my screen, and then Nick, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you to kind of get us going and show us a couple things here today. So um, just before we get going, just know AI, it's just a tool to enhance our expertise. It's not to replace anything that we're doing. For us as remote faculty, the focus should be on saving time, improving quality. The time saving has been a big benefit for me. And so we're going to look at multiple ways that AI can improve our workflow. And the first way that Nick's going to talk about is just improving or building some assessments and rubrics with AI. So Nick, I'll let you take it away. And if you want to share your screen, you can do that as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to keep working with you and collaborating with you. And yeah, I want to start by saying, like, I am not an AI expert by any means. I'm not a curriculum expert. I'm just someone that has played with this so many times, and I have figured out ways to improve my own life as a professor. And I think especially for you all teaching online, you sometimes miss that community and that person to bounce ideas off of at the moment, at the exact time that you kind of need it. Whether it's 2 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 3 in the afternoon, sometimes you need an answer and you don't have anyone to ask. And I want to start by saying that AI is nothing more than a really, really handy, assistant or administrative assistant or coworker or colleague that can just bounce an idea off of. It is great for ideas, it is great for improving things, but it is not meant to, like Brandon said, not meant to replace anything. It is not meant to do our jobs for us. So starting with that, I'll say that the number one of the ways that we really, or that I've really used it, is to help improve or build my assessments, and especially with rubrics. So, oftentimes we come up with this great assessment or this great assignment, I should say, and we think, all right, this is great. It has everything to do with what we're talking about. It's very relevant to the course content, but we sometimes forget that we've got these learning objectives that are hanging over our heads. And sometimes it's nice to say, just take that assignment and just feed it into, like, let's say, I mean, my personal AI of choice is ChatGPT. I think it's very user friendly. I think a lot of people use it. And so I just feed that assignment into ChatGPT, and I make sure I just ask it, can you explain all the different ways that this might relate to my learning objectives? And if it isn't abundantly clear from step one, then maybe I need to rework my assignment. And so right then and there, that's just an easy way to just make sure that I'm sticking to what I'm supposed to be sticking to. Because again, many of you are handed your courses, if they're pre-designed, and that's great, and this might already be done. But let's say you're building a course from scratch, you are taking over a course and you want to fix some things. This is a great way to keep you on track. So that's one thing that I do right away with a new assignment. Another great opportunity there is, let's say you don't have a set rubric. Well, ChatGPT is really good at taking your learning objectives, taking your assignments, building a base, a template for you to work off of. You do have to massage it and make it work, but even the formatting it gives you is so much cleaner than starting from scratch. And there have been times where I have, let's say, a 3 column, let's say it's a 5 point assignment and I've got 5, 3, and 1, but I really want to go even more detailed than that. And I want a column for 4 and I want a column for 2 points out of 5. It is really great at filling in those gaps for you. And so, AI for me, it's just a glorified, if I had in a perfect world, if I had a GA, AI right now is my low budget graduate assistant. It is just helping me do some of these low level tasks, but not waste too much energy on them. And so that's a really great way to start off using AI, is just asking it for help on certain things. Again, not asking it, hey, create an assignment from scratch. Even though we'll get into that later, like there are ways it can help you with that. But improving your assessments, improving your rubrics. I didn't really talk about the assessments yet, but one thing that I've learned recently is, a lot of us have used textbooks in the past, and they maybe come with instructor resources like quiz questions. And a lot of us, at least at my university, are moving away from adopting textbooks. And we're using open source information, we're using articles, whatever it might be. And so what you can do is actually you can take readings, you can take video transcripts even, which is a new little hint. If you go on YouTube for an educational video, you can take the transcript and you can feed all of that into ChatGPT and ask it to build quiz questions for you. And again, obviously, you are responsible for all this work, so you have to go back and make sure that these quiz questions are actually part of the readings. But more often than not, they are, and it saves you a tremendous amount of time because you don't have to worry about the wording of the question. It already does that at a high level. And so it is helpful in, I've done the work, I found the reading, I've read the reading 3 times, I know how it relates to class, I know how I want to discuss it with my students. But maybe I'm a little burnt out at that point and I need help. Give me 5 questions for a quiz that I could ask about this article, just to check for understanding, make sure that we're all on the same page. It can do that for you very quickly. So that's one really big advantage you have utilizing AI to save yourself some time.
So Nick, I want to jump in here real quick and just kind of put a question out to everybody. You've talked about some ways that you've used it, to kind of enhance your teaching, make things a little bit more tied to the course objectives. Here at ACU, we can't just unilaterally kind of change our classes and in assessments. There's a process we have to go through. But I am interested if anybody has used AI to help do what you say, kind of finesse or change or just strengthen some of their assessments. I thought the idea of like taking a video and taking the transcript from the video and then making a quiz is a really great idea to make sure that students actually went through and watched it. So just curious if anybody's done that or if anybody has any questions for Nick on what he's done in the past.
I have actually used it to help with a discussion prompt. So I read
Mhm.
what the student's written, and then I have some ideas of how I would like to respond. And I've asked AI what discussion prompt follow-up would fit what the student wrote and my response to it, and that's worked pretty well.
That's great. That was a perfect segue to like tip number 4 that I had today. So I'm going to come back to that. But I've done the same thing where I've taken, especially if it's a topic I'm not an expert on, I have an understanding of it. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And that's one I wanted to bring up later in the presentation. Excellent. All right, let's go on to number 2 here, Nick, because I want to make sure we get through as many of these as we can. Aligning our class with today's industry, and both you and I, we come from a sport management background, and while sport kind of stays consistent, the environment around it is changing constantly, and just trying to keep up our classes and the relevance for that. So, talk a little bit about that, how we can use AI to keep us up to date.
Yeah. So one of the funny things about AI is it's not always up to date, right? I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but students will struggle when the question is talked about something that happened last week and AI isn't caught up to that yet. At least with ChatGPT, it's usually a month, 2 months, 3 months behind. So one of my favorite things to combat AI use sometimes, and this is a tip to everybody, is if you use extremely current events, you can really stump the students because they can't just throw it into ChatGPT and hope for the best. Now, if they're an advanced user, they could go download some recent event articles, upload those to ChatGPT, which then fill that gap. But then it's so much work on their end. Hopefully, they would have just answered the prompt in the first place. But yes, what I do like to do is, especially like you said, you're not changing your courses as the instructor, right? They're kind of prepackaged. But what you can do is sometimes add an additional reading, maybe add an additional question. And so what you can do with this is you can personally take current events and ask the AI to basically, how do I integrate this into my current curriculum? How do I add this to this conversation? And it will come up with a scarily detailed plan for you on how to integrate things into what you have already made. Okay. And so I see Brandon's going to go in there
Go ahead and
and
do it.
go ahead and try it.
Yeah. I had another prompt up here ready to go. Hang with me. If you want to fill for time here real quick, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No problem.
I could add to that with the announcement that President Trump made this week about using Google and 59 other companies. In my class, we were talking about these kind of updates, and I asked them what was specifically in the announcement and gave them the links to 5 references that I had found. So you're right, they can't go to GPT and get it to answer them, but I use it to send them out and do some research on their own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, that's a whole nother presentation about how and I think you said you've already had one like that, Brandon, where we teach how to integrate it into like for student use and how to support it. But that's certainly a way. I mean, we had an assignment in a course I just worked in where the actual assignment was to just communicate with ChatGPT to solve a problem, give me the transcript of the conversation, give me a summary of how you felt that whole experience was versus doing it on your own. And it was a different way of learning for sure. And it kind of supports AI use in that context. But for today, just talking about how to make our lives easier, one thing that you could certainly do is you could take a bunch of recent articles and you can have ChatGPT or any AI summarize them for you. You can literally ask, how do I integrate this into my current lesson? And it will teach you how to do that, or it'll give you a step-by-step process. And it all comes down to the prompt engineering and making sure you're asking the right questions. And the one thing I'll say is don't be afraid to bully your AI. And sometimes people are kind of polite because we're just polite people, and we say, no, that's not really what I'm talking about. Don't waste the energy. Just be very direct. That's not even close. I don't know what you're talking about. This is what I want. I want you to talk about this security issue in the WNBA where people are throwing things on the court, and I want it integrated right now. And it'll give you a step-by-step process on how to do that.
So, Brandy, I say please and thank you just in case. And it's funny, my wife makes fun of me because I will tell ChatGPT please and thank you, because I've seen Terminator enough to know that, when Skynet becomes, self-intelligent, I want to be on their good side, right? But we're looking at, just what are current trends in conflict management that I should teach. And, ChatGPT, it just spit out What do we got here? We got 10 of them. And what's interesting, if you put this into Chat GPT, and mine might be different because I've got a pro subscription, but we'll just look at number one, emotional intelligence as a core competency. And if you just highlight role plays, so it's giving you some suggestions as an instructor what you could do. If you highlight that, it brings up a little prompt to ask Chat GPT. So if I click that and I'll say, create a role play for create a role play for an undergraduate class, and then it's going to come up with something or some type of role play or an assessment you could use. And then, as Nick was saying, the more that the prompts that you give it to kind of refine that and make it fit your class, make it fit your objectives, it just saves you probably an hour worth of work right there.
And then I'll ask you to add one more prompt since you already have this naturally
Sure.
progressing. Ask it to create a case study. And just keep it very simple. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just want to make sure you heard me.
And I'll say grading rubric too.
And see, it says estimated time 1 to 2 class sessions or a take-home assignment. And I would already hit the stop button and say, I want this to last about 30 minutes in my class where I discuss organizational behavior. And it will then, again, pivot again. So, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and do that as well? Just say, I would like this to last about 30 minutes. Please give me a script. Yeah, please. I mean, listen, as long as it's part of a pre-existing prompt, it's all good. Just don't add prompts that just say please and thank you. And so now we're really dialing this in here, because sometimes we realize that our lesson only lasted 60 minutes instead of 75. Again, for in-person. Now for online, there's other ways about this, but if you're in-person teaching, now you have a full-on script that you can use. It's got it timed out. And again, you're the expert. You know how long the class will take. You know how long these things will take. It's got great questions, and you can keep just prodding this thing and massaging it until you get something that you're very happy with.
Yep.
And so I'll say one thing that I did this year, I was teaching a class of 40 at Eastern Michigan last fall. And it was a social issues and sport course, so sports sociology. And I wanted to do the student feedback was, we want more reflection, we want to summarize, we want to study for our exam. How can we do that? I took every PowerPoint chapter that I had from each module, I uploaded it, and I created a case study for every single chapter that we covered. Then I took those chapters and gave them out to each group. They had to do the case study, present it to the entire class. So as a class, we were all reviewing and teaching each other as a review, and all because it made it a lot easier to go back and create a case study for each individual component of the course. And so the students loved it because it was not your traditional review for an exam. I loved it because I could see with each case study which elements were being brought back into the course in a different way. And they can be based on reality. You can use fake people and fake examples. It doesn't matter. It's your choice. But that's just another fun way that we used to kind of integrate it into the courses.
Erica has a really good question, and I don't know if it's one I've necessarily considered, but putting our proprietary information into Chat GPT, because at the end of the day, us as faculty, we're the ones who are creating these classes. Obviously, we're taking from other places, but it's our work. It's kind of our IP. So, do you think there's any suggestions, best practices to protect like what we're putting into these large language models and showing up in other places that may use Chat GPT?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you are worried about that, yeah, well, yes, Wally, that's a very good point. Don't put any identifying information into AI. But if you're also worried about that, you basically would want to do your own LLM through ACU, just like many large corporations are doing, to keep everything in-house. So it has access to outside information, but your information doesn't go outside. Now, obviously, that's not always the most realistic thing. So sometimes it's best, and not everything we do is proprietary. I mean, a lot of us aren't reinventing the wheel in our classrooms. If we're using a textbook, that information's already in. AI already has access. Anything that's already out there on the internet, it already exists for AI. So as far as creating something proprietary on your end, I question how really proprietary it is if it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. But you could also just not feed it very much and just keep asking and asking and asking. And that way you kind of protect what is yours and proprietary.
So I actually think that's a good segue here into point 3, where we align weekly topics and objectives. So um, we've all done course development, and I've just had another course development class kick off yesterday. And you can use AI as a tool. Again, I use that word tool, and I use it deliberately because I don't want to just rely on what AI says. Because to go to Erica's point, I mean, it just might be it's looking at the internet, it's looking at what's been fed, and I can't necessarily trust everything that it's been fed is accurate. So I always go back and I double check. But we can use it if you need some help developing topics, objectives, activities, resources. So I'm going to go back here to ChatGPT, and I'm going to, let me go here. So I'm going to start developing a sport management class. And so the prompt that I have for ChatGPT is create 7 weekly topics, give me some weekly objectives for each one, make sure they align with the program outcomes, and I give the program outcomes, make sure they align with the class outcomes. I give the class outcomes, and then I say, hey, I'm using this textbook, and these are the following chapters. So I'm going to copy all of this. And put this in there. And we'll see how it does. So it's given me week 1's kind of like an intro, the foundations of sport management, what chapters I should use. It gives me 3 weekly objectives. And then it would be up to me to go through and edit each one of these. All right, is this a good topic? Do these objectives match the topic? Do the objectives match our course objectives as well? And then make sure the reading matches those. So I've done this before where I've kind of put in a similar prompt and I said, hey, these are the chapters, these are the readings, and it was way off. It wasn't close. So again, you want to double check, but if you're having a hard time kind of putting together a class, you're a little bit behind on time, you just need something to kind of prompt some ideas. I mean, this just gives me 7 weeks here of content, and then I can go in and start creating assessments.
Yep. And I did something similar yesterday where, I mean, we even talked over the phone, Brennan, about this. And the funny thing is, so Brennan and I do discuss sport management curriculum at times. And I have to, with my new position at Wayne State, I have to take over some courses and redo them. Now, I don't change the learning objectives, but I do get to choose how the course is taught. And it's a sports history course. And the person that had it.
Oh, we lost him here for a second. That's all right.
Person that taught the person that taught the course before me, they had a very interesting layout. And what I preferred was to, just like many history courses, go in a chronological order. And so I asked the LLM to basically take the old rubric and how do we reinvent this course to be chronological, which a history course, it makes sense for it to be. And then I said, wait a second, just as a reminder, when we're coming up with our grading and our assignments, My raises and my promotions are primarily based off of student satisfaction scores. So I said, could you also take that into consideration when we design this course together? And all of a sudden, it gave me a couple of projects and different structures of and examples of courses where it was maybe a little bit more student friendly from the experience portion. It wasn't just here's a midterm, here's a final. It came up with ideas of using different projects at different stages. And then I said, well, I teach this class twice a day, 2 semesters a year, to 35 students per class. How do I kind of limit the amount of hours grading? And so it came up with more ideas. And so you can gradually just use this as basically ideas. Then when I thought I had a final polished product, then I call Brandon and one other person who are in the industry and I say, here's what I've come up with. What do we think about this? Do we think this makes sense? And so it all started off with just a prompt and basically a conversation between me and my AI assistant about how do we build this course. Now, we're still the experts. We're still teaching the course. However, we used AI to aid in the design of the course, making sure that it makes sense, making sure that these things tie together, because it does look at things logically and it assumes and creates these things for us that follow a logical pattern.
And then I know we're starting to get up against it. We got about 3 minutes, but I did want to get to this real quick because Suzanne brought it up just a minute ago about communicating with students and how AI can help you do things from drafting weekly announcements, suggesting replies to discussion posts, helping write clear and supportive emails. One thing I taught risk management at a previous institution, and I know enough about it to be dangerous with a little bit of background. But there was one prompt about workers' compensation, and workers' compensation I dealt with when I was an entrepreneur was very, very low risk, very, very low amounts. This one was a little bit different, and it's asking students about a scenario in light of what the chapter said and workers' comp cost. Can you make an argument in favor of developing a safety program for a company? Give some examples of activities you might include in this safety program. And so this was a reply from a student. And again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this student did a nice job of giving a reply, giving some examples. And so the prompt that I would put into ChatGPT would be create a reply to this student that critiques her answer to discussion forum questions and provides helpful feedback. Keep the reply positive in tone and limit the reply to 100 words. So I'm just going to put that into good old ChatGPT. See what that spits out. So to strengthen your argument, consider quantifying how these efforts could reduce liability costs long-term, or referencing court trends that support proactive safety measures. This would help counter the VP's cost efficiency concern and align better with the risk management perspective. So again, I would not necessarily just use this verbatim. And I certainly wouldn't get into the practice as an educator of just using ChatGPT as being the one that communicates with students, because in online, I think this is where the real learning can happen. But if you are up against it, or you do need maybe some prompts, as kind of Suzanne was talking about, it's a tool, and it's a great tool to kind of help you with that.
Yeah, and if I could add to that real quick, Brandon, if you can just add a quick prompt, and I'll type it so you don't have to.
And yeah, we will send out this PowerPoint. I can do that. And this will also be on our YouTube page for FDI.
And so I would say adding a prompt like this, assuming you've already started creating feedback for the student, Brand's going to copy and paste it in. If you just add this prompt to any student response, it will help you make sure you don't miss something, because it's not answering anything, right? This is just giving you, this is for you as the professor. Maybe you missed something. And especially with the things that the student maybe needs to improve.
And so I told you these 30 minutes would fly by.
Yeah.
And I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I will open it up if there's any last minute questions, comments. Be happy to hear you share. Hearing none.
Brandon, I'll just
Yeah,
jump
go
in and
ahead.
say,
Please.
I really appreciate how you guys are looking at how to use this to improve faculty productivity and improve the communication with students rather than replace it. So all of the work that you've done that how can I be more thorough, or how can I have it check me? I think I really appreciate that approach. I think it's a good approach. Like how does it help us be more effective?
Thanks, Jordan.
I mean, sometimes I just use it to make my emails more courteous after the 5th conversation with a student and just say, can you please make this warmer and more professional? Because sometimes, soften my tone. That's a good one, because sometimes, or, if you're out and I told Brandon this yesterday, if you're out and about, you're just on your phone and the student is badgering you and you want to be a good communicative professor and you want to get back to them as soon as possible, copy, paste that conversation. It'll come up with an idea for you and then you can massage it from there. But especially, we're also short on time and resources. It is a tool to make your life easier, not to replace what you do.
Well, thank you so much for everybody for joining us today. This was a lot of fun. Our next FDI session is going to be August 28th, 11 a.m. Central. We're going to talk about accessibility with AI in online education. So we will get this presentation, this table talk, we'll get this out to the YouTube page. I think Brandy put the link up there. Thank you so much. And we'll put the PowerPoint in there as well.